everyone. Welcome back to the Rebel Crow Psychic Show with your host, Athena Silver.
Hi, I'm Anja River.
Tonight, we're talking about the mystics, the alchemists, the astrologers, and the psychics that made such an impact in this world that we still talk about them today. We're talking about these five amazing people, both men and women, who have impacted the spiritual industry in such a way that we still read their books, we still talk about them, people are still making videos on YouTube about them. You know, we're spanning the globe and we're spanning time. We're going to have some people from the early days in history, and then we're going to have some people that are closer to our time, in the modern time. So are you excited?
Let's get started.
I'm excited. This is probably going to be my favorite episode.
You think?
That's just
how come?
I really look up to these people. I think that their contributions were so big and lasted so long and impacted so many people that it's an honor to talk about them, and it's an honor to be in their shoes and in their footsteps that they left.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, I agree.
I'm going to start off with probably my favorite. He's well known. Well, now he's probably not my favorite, but he's cool too.
That's kind of a diss.
Well, no diss on him. You know, he packs a lot of heat. He's very important. It's just, to me, he's not my favorit. But we'll talk about my favorite much
That's
later.
because you have a favorite.
I do have a favorite.
Not because he's not wonderful.
No, Nostradamus was on and popping. I'm messing with Nostradamus, all right? That's who we're going to talk about now. You know, we're talking about the man who was born in Provence, France in 1503, just a regular dude, who happened to write some almanacs, and everybody loved what he was writing, that they started coming to him asking for him to make predictions. You know, he was also a seer. So he used to scry in mirrors and in bowls of water. He was also a doctor, but like when I mean doctor, I mean like medieval doctor, where they're like bloodletting and leeches and, you know.
I did not know that.
Huh?
I did not know that.
Yeah. No, Nostradamus. He was known for treating people with plague. Apparently he lost a lot of family in the plague. And you know, that impacts a person, you know, and it set him on this spiritual journey, you know, throughout his life to make connection and to understand the stars. He is well known for predicting, he predicted the rise of Hitler and Napoleon. He predicted the French Revolution, obviously, Napoleon. He also, people also say that he predicted the death of an English king and 9/11.
Really?
Now, the 9/11 one, I don't know that one. A little bit dodgy, in my opinion. But people swear by his predictions, even still.
I think I remember this. Yeah, after it happened, there was like lots of stuff on the internet about it, of course, right?
Oh,
yeah,
the conspiracy theory community went wild.
No, with the Nostradamus prediction.
Yes.
I think it was something about mountains, like there was like, you know,
something like that.
Something like
that.
You know,
okay. If you honestly, it's easy to find. You just Google it. You can look up some of his predictions. So many people have done YouTube videos about it. It's very easy information to find. But more importantly, I feel like his contribution to our community as spiritual workers was that he made it kind of mainstream to be a seer. You know, it was out in the public. You know, regular people would see seers, important people would see seers, you know, everybody was seeing, you know, a divinator, someone who could look across the veil and to see things that were coming. It was something that it wasn't as demonized, surprisingly enough, because of the context of France at that time was very Christian. but it was done in such a way that he was more of an astrologer than he was like a sorcerer. I put air quotes because that's what they called him back in the day. But he was important. I think he, to me, I will tell you, there is not a Nostradamus video that I will not watch, whether it is super conspiracy theory or not. I'm all in.
Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory from Nostradamus?
I think
like something that's like a guilty pleasure thing, or
oh no,
you don't have to answer that.
My guilty pleasure all day long is anything Baba Yaga. But we're going to talk about her in another episode because her story is super interesting too.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, moving right along, I also want to talk about another very important astrologer, alchemist, mathematician, occultist, and teacher. He is not as well known. I think this dude is cool. He kickstarted like a magical revolution in England after his passing. And I'm talking about the famous John Dee. He was born in England in 1527. He was the private personal advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. She's the one that never married. So he became one of her closest like confidants. He would do daily horoscope charts for her to help her make decisions of state at the time.
Isn't it fascinating that so many politicians even back then were getting like astrology readings? And
listen, girl, it happens present day.
I remember Ronald Reagan like wouldn't do anything if it was in the middle of I forget the term right now. Void of course. like,
that's just smart.
And he had, yeah, right?
But yeah, this dude, he not only did he make contributions to the magical practice of England at the time, he made huge strides in science. He was he was really responsible for bringing science and magic together for the time. People have tried to make sense of his notes. His legacy is a little bit of a cryptic one. A lot of people don't really agree on a lot of the information out there about him. But yeah, you'll find videos about him in the science section and like the alchemy section.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, well, apparently the last 30 years of his life were spent trying to communicate with angels and to learn their language. And he made a lot of like notations, and after his death they were published and ridiculed. And
yeah, I'm sure
there has been a resurgence of interest in him in the common day to really untarnish his good name and really to understand his contributions.
Yeah.
He was also involved in the Rosicrucian movement, which I don't know if any of you know what that is. It's a movement that was popular in the 1600s. And it was kind of a mix between like Kabbalah, Hermeticism, alchemy, Christian mysticism. It was very much like the East meets West, philosophy-wise, with magical practice. He was very instrumental in that movement, and also with the legacy that came from that. He was very involved in certain chapters of Freemasonry. His legacy is he influenced the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and Thelema, which was Aleister Crowley's group, which Aleister Crowley was associated with both those groups, the Golden Dawn and Thelema. He even influenced parts of Wicca with Alexandrian and Gardnerian lineages. So he has a big shadow. He casts a big shadow.
It's so funny. I've never heard of him, so I need to do some studying. but that's crazy how all of these things that we're looking at today still are his legacy.
Well, a lot of high
All the way.
magic is based off of a lot of his practices and theories. You know, he is a contributor to those lineages. And they're still popular and active today.
Yeah.
I actually recently came across a reprint of one of his grimoires. It was
Really?
crazy expensive and I didn't have the money for it, but I was thinking about buying it.
Did you save it at least? So you know where you...
I did.
Okay.
But it sold out anyway, unfortunately.
Oh
Because it
no.
was a reprint and it was a very limited reprint. But yeah,
no.
I mean, this is a man who in his day was working with very, you know, very high up socialite type of connected people. And he was not only, you know, helping them with their stars and their charts and their horoscopes, he was helping them with high magic and changing the tide of the path that that person was on. So, you know, he was a jack of all trades, I think, you know, real Renaissance man.
Yeah, definitely. That's
so
awesome.
who do you want to start off with? I'm curious to know who's on your list.
Well, I picked two women who influence me every single day. They have so many similarities, and so I think I'll talk about them kind of together and then apart a little bit. But they are the women who created the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and the Thoth deck. So they are the artists behind that. So we have Pamela Coleman Smith, who is the illustrator of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck.
There's a very sorry to cut you off, but there's a very
okay.
interesting story about their dynamic that I think we should definitely do a video about at some point.
Their dynamic meaning
those he took a lot of the credit for her concepts. And unfortunately at the time, women were not given the voice and the power that we have now. So she was almost lost to history.
You know what's funny is because both of these women, both Pamela Coleman Smith and Lady Frida Harris, I didn't get to the second one, Lady Frida Harris, they both kind of like, to me, they both kind of like shrunk back from their, you know, like having people know this is my artwork. In the case of Lady Frida Harris, I think she just didn't want her name on it at all. She was just happy to, okay, so let's do Pamela Coleman Smith first, because I'm about to jump into Lady Frida Harris. So Pamela Coleman Smith and Lady Frida Harris, both born in the 1870s, both born in London. Pamela was, she moved around. She was in Jamaica for a few years. She learned a lot of the folk tales there, and it inspired some of her later work, which is really cool. I am personally unclear if she is part Jamaican. I've seen in places that she's part Jamaican, but then there's other places that say that her parents were both American. But it seems like Jamaica really influenced her life in certain works that she did, and you know, some other things. And then she lived in Jamaica. Then she was in the US. She went to Pratt for a couple of years. The cool thing about her is that it said that she had synesthesia.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's like it's like cross sensing. So like when you eat a strawberry, you hear, you know, a symphony, or you know,
I've had that before. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, some kind of cross wiring in the brain.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
It is, but it's scary when it's happening.
Really?
Yes. It's very like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. I hadn't known that about her before I started like looking into her for this piece, but you know, both she and Lady Frida Harris influenced me every single day. They influenced so many of us, and they were never really intending to have their names so prominent. You know, the funny thing about Pamela Coleman Smith too is that she actually, there's like a little squiggle at the bottom, and I always thought it was a sigil on the cards. You ever see like her
Yeah, no, I know
signatures?
what you're
Like
talking about.
I've always thought that that was a sigil, and actually
Yep.
it's her initials. And it's like, so there's like a P, you can't, and then a C, and then an S, and then a period.
Yep,
So
I've
I
seen
thought that was
more.
really, really cool. Did you know it was her initials? I didn't know.
I
I
did.
thought it was a sigil. I was like, oh.
No, I knew about her because I watched something about her a couple of years ago, and I noticed they brought it up in the film, and I was like, oh, I noticed that. I never really put two and two together because she, like I said, in her time, did not really get credit for her work.
No, she didn't. She didn't. And I don't think either one really, I know Lady Frida Harris didn't live to see the deck become what it is.
Yeah.
So it's really sad that they didn't get to see how impactful their work would be in such a short period of time later. We're talking like the Rider-Waite-Smith was published in like around 1910, I think, and the Thoth was like around in the 40s, like 1945 maybe, and neither one really got to see the impact that they had. I love Lady Frida Harris because I think, also Pamela Coleman Smith is a badass too. I have to say that. She was a badass. Lady Frida Harris is so interesting to me because she was the one who approached Crowley to do this project.
Wow, and that's bold back in the day because
she was 60 years
6'6".
old. She was 60 years old, and she approached him and kept approaching him and kept approaching him. And he was like not in a good place. He was already on heroin.
Yeah, dude
He
was crazy.
Nobody liked him. He wasn't, he never had anything good to say about anybody. And she befriended him and did this project. It took her 5 years to paint this deck. And it's so fascinating. Like, I've been studying it for a little while, and I'm amazed at how many layers it has. And one of the most interesting things about this deck is that it wasn't intended to be a divination tool like other decks are. They were talking about how they intended it to be a map of the universe.
Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it sounds, like if you could take it in one way and be like, wow, that's really egotistical or whatever. But no, I mean, there's so many layers between, the math that was involved and the astrology, it's embedded in there. And there's Egyptian myths all over the place.
He was also a heavy psychedelic user in his practices at the time. So that makes sense to me as someone who has done that type of work. To have a map like that is going to help you navigate, your experience.
But she wasn't just taking orders from him. She was a part of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. She learned on her own. She was doing a lot of the work on this. So, I mean, it's fascinating because, they said, I read things that say that this was, like he was very demanding and he wanted her to repaint, certain cards up to 8 times. And, but I really feel like it was a collaboration between the two. And she has so much credit owed to her because she really, she learned, everything that she could. And she really wanted this to, it's got Kabbalah in there. I mean, there's so much in there, it's fascinating. So I really like, how these women like affect me on my, they're both studies of, I think, especially in the case of Pamela Coleman Smith, she's very much like beloved by the feminist community, and people are starting to catch on about who she is and to give her the credit that she deserves for her deck that has impacted so many. And they're both suffragettes in their day, and I don't know, they just both have given so much through their work.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's beautiful to me that you could do that so selflessly, like knowing, like in the case of Lady Frida Harris, she didn't even want to be known for this. So to me, it's a very selfless kind of way to live your life, and
Well,
and
that's the life of spiritual work. A lot of us are called to this, not to be in service for ourselves, but to be in service for everyone else.
it
It's
lends
part of
so
the
much
calling.
it lends so much authenticity though to her, which is something that none of us really, not that we don't have authenticity, but like just that it takes a very special person to like put it out there anonymously, to put your life's work on a piece of paper and just back off. So
Yeah.
I think she's like a real badass too. And again, she was 60 years old when she started this project. 60, and she finished and then just retired on a houseboat in India as like an 80-year-old woman.
Nice.
So definitely,
hey, that's how I want to go out.
like fearless, like fearless lady, I think, anyway. So yeah, so those are the two that inspire me that I wanted to honor tonight.
So this last person has impacted me personally in a great amount. A lot of you are now starting to see the documentary on Netflix that's coming out about his life. He was over the top, norm and gender bending and non-conforming and all fabulous about it. He wore these beautiful capes with embellishments and rings and jewelry. We're talking about the one, the only Walter Mercado. I feel like he needs a round of applause. Now, Walter, he was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico in 1932. He was a dancer first, a telenovela actor, and an instructor. And he got his big break on telenovelas, one in the documentary, if you saw it, it's called Mucho, Mucho Amor, because that's how he used to close his episodes. So I remember being a little kid watching them with our great grandmother. She would tape it from time to time and run over to our grandmother's house going, hey, Kiki, you're a Taurus, sit down. This is what they got to say about you. And she would show you, she would tape it sometimes to show you, in the family, whose horoscope was what for the week. So, for me, like watching him on TV, watching him with those beautiful costumes, he used to have the big gaudy jewelry, looking he looked like Spanish Liberace.
Yes.
But he had swag. Oh my God, the swag he had, and he became a phenomenon. He had a show from the 1960s all the way to 2006, and he was syndicated all over the world, basically in every single Spanish-speaking country. He became a phenomenon, and it's funny to me because he's still a phenomenon. When he passed away, there was such a huge public outpour of people, saying how much he meant to them and how he shaped them as people. Just being on the air for, an hour, half hour, 15 minutes, depending on the spot that he did, because he would do a little spot on the news sometimes. Just the legacy that he left, not only for the LGBTQ community, but just for the Spanish-speaking community. He was the first person on TV that had that lifestyle, had that, alternate type of situation going on, which was not really welcome at the time. It was kind of a very much old school, Christian kind of atmosphere, especially like in the 70s and 80s. It was definitely more restricted. But he went on there and people loved him. And, he never came out I think that he was more asexual than anything. But honestly, his sexual orientation had nothing to do with his skill. His skill was amazing. In the documentary, he was talking about how he was a gifted child and he could heal people and animals and things. And as he got older, he got deeper into mysticism and into divination and just spirituality in general. He you could definitely tell, like they showed shots of his house in the documentary and I was like, ooh, Eastern spirituality was big for him. He had a gigantic statue of Buddha in his house and Ganesh and all these, beautiful Hindu gods and goddesses. And, he had such a big eclectic practice. And, being of Puerto Rican descent for you and I, it was nice to see such a diverse, well-rounded practice for somebody, which is, you find that a lot in Puerto Rico. Many people have very different, diverse spiritualities and spiritual expressions down there because it's welcome. It's just how it is. So just to see, the Eastern influence in his practice was really interesting because I didn't know that about him. But I always have, these memories about him, because I feel like I grew up with him a little bit. You
did.
Yeah, and it's nostalgic for me, but like I was literally watching the documentary and crying at the end.
Really?
Like, in bed by myself. Like, rest in peace.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend anybody, to see it. He was a beautiful Pisces. He definitely had that strong Pisces energy, wanting to love everybody, wanted to please everybody, wanting everybody to be happy. His messages every week, even for all horoscopes, was always a positive, uplifting message. It was never about, oh, you're a Scorpio, you're an angry asshole. No, it was always it was always like, you are tough on the outside and you defend what's yours, but you're beautiful in the inside. You are more.
So inspirational for
it was
everybody.
Very inspirational. And at the time, it kind of hooked a lot of people, especially people who were, in the lower economic standing, people who didn't have a lot of money. It was like sometimes you just needed to hear that little piece of hope to get you through your day. If the rent's due and you're a couple hundred short and you're stressing out, just the 15 minutes to hear what your horoscope says for the day could just really uplift you and get you through that day. And his impact was one of peace and positivity and love. And it was needed then and it's needed now. It just, from the 60s to today, that, he's still relevant. And I think he has impacted a lot of us in the Latinx community, and a lot of us spiritual workers, to really put ourselves out there and reach more people. He didn't always have it easy, and he did not always have an easy life, but I will tell you, it was one of big, beautiful hair and glamour.
Yeah, right.
He always looked good. He always looked, he had that like 70s grandma hair going. He worked it though.
I remember that. Yeah.
So, he pulled it off. But his legacy is, I think it's gonna carry on throughout the generations. And I think that, if it's weird to me how much love our generation has for him. Because he went off the air in 2006.
Wow.
So it's like, the real young kids never got to see him, but a lot of us older ones that grew up in the 90s, like, that's when he was big on TV, like with the Psychic Friend Network and the whole deal, You used to see him on with Miss Cleo every now and again.
I was going to say Miss Cleo was the best.
Oh, she was, but she was a fraudster.
I know, but still, just the best.
She changed the game, though. I do have to say that. She changed the game, and I'm
You gotta give her
Huh?
Yeah, you gotta give her some credit.
I do. She stepped up the game. She was making money, although she was scamming people. That has to be said. She definitely was committing fraud. Girl wasn't even Jamaican.
She wasn't Jamaican?
Nope.
No way.
She was not Jamaican. I think she was from Brooklyn. Nah, she was just a girl, hustling.
She was from Brooklyn. That's great.
I think she was from Brooklyn. She was definitely from the United States.
I gotta look into her again.
She was from New York.
I gotta look into her again. That's just
I think we should do an episode on her.
I so want to. I so want to. Like, it just brings me right back to being like a little kid in the 90s, like staying up late at night going,
oh yeah,
Cleo can help me figure out which boy is gonna marry me.
Those commercials too, with her sitting with the scarf on and the crystal ball, and it was just next level. It was next level. It was like stereotypically psychic.
What was the number at the bottom that flashed at the bottom?
It was like a 1-900 number.
Yeah, 1-900, the one that cost like $1 million.
You get like the first 5 minutes free, and then they nickel and dime you for every minute after that.
Yeah.
So it's like you got a speed talk like, hey, Cleo, what boy likes me? Boy 1, boy 2. Let me know. Okay, I got to go. Bye.
My mom's coming.
Whatever happened to her, I would love
I don't know. Let's do an episode on it.
I would have her as a guest.
Yeah.
I talked to Cleo. Hell yeah. I want to know what her story is.
All right, Miss Cleo, please contact us. We want to have
please.
you on.
Shout out to Miss Cleo, for real. No, nothing but love here, honey. Nothing but love here. No, because even she was impactful. Everybody, if you grew up from like 1983 to like 1994, 95, her commercial. She was sitting at the desk with like hella phones, answering them, reading cards. Anyway, I could talk about Cleo all day.
Yeah, let's save it for another episode.
Definitely. Thank you guys for, listening to us. For anyone who's interested, I'm Athena Silver. I do professional psychic readings. I'm also a pagan minister. My website is readingswithathenasilver.com. My Instagram is athena.silver, and my Facebook is @readingswithathenasilver. And if you want more, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow us. We're on Instagram at Rebel Crow Psychic Show. How can they get a hold of you, Anja?
I am on Instagram at ANJARIVER. Same with Facebook, and I do readings as well.
We are going to be putting up more episodes on a weekly basis. If there's a topic that you guys want to hear about, hit us up, send us a message, comment on our video. We're trying to build community. We want to become a resource for people, especially people starting out on their spiritual paths. Also, we're bored. It's quarantine, and we need people to talk to. So please keep us busy.
I'm not bored.
For $3 a day, you can sponsor 2 30-year-old women who need some shit to do. We don't do windows. Anyway, you guys have a great night. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you back here next week. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.